honest. Growing up. For real? I didn't have it.
No, just go up there, right?
Oh, yeah.
How you think I messed it up?
Okay.
Right. Let me show you. How you doing? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا اللهم زدنا علما إنك أنت عليم الحكيم اللهم اجعل هذه محاضرة حجة لنا لا حجة علينا يا رب العالمين أما بعد. In continuation of our class, Kitab al-Nikah, the first part we covered maybe a couple months ago. We finished off on the recommended time. The recommended time for a person to get married, etc. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to cover the pillars of marriage. In addition to the pillars, we're also going to cover the conditions of marriage. And then tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to go into some of the impermissible things of marriage, etc. So to start, and remember, we're going through a book called Zad al-Mustaqni' from Imam al-Hajjawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, according to the school of Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah. So the first part, we're going to start off with the pillars of marriage. The pillars of marriage. The pillars are two things or three things. Without them, there is no marriage to begin with. That's why they're called the pillars. Like the pillars of the salah. Salam rahmatullah. Like the pillars of the salah. Without the pillars of the salah, there is no salah. Right? So here, Arkanahu az-zawjani khaliyani min al-mawani'. So that in order for people to get married, there has to be two people that do not have anything that would prevent or prohibit them from getting married. So some of the ulama al-Islam, they mention, for example, as it relates to a woman that's on her mens, or I'm sorry, not on her mens, but in iddah, a woman that has her iddah. In this case, it is impermissible for a woman to get married while she is in iddah, Right. As it relates to a man, this is a quick example of a man that cannot get married. For example, if a man has 4 wives and he's trying to marry another one, in this case, it will be impermissible for him to get married. The next thing, al-ijab wal-qabul. Al-ijab wal-qabul, and what these words mean are, and we're gonna read through it, and then we're gonna talk about it. It says, وَلَا يَصِحُّ مِمَّا يُحْسِنُ الْعَرَبِيَّةِ بِغَيْرِ لَفْظٍ. So here, when it talks about al-qabul or ijab wal-qabul, the ijab is when a wali, not a wakil. When a wali, does everyone know the difference between a wali and a wakil? Huh? Can a woman get married if she has a wakil? Mumtaz. Brother says yes if it's appointed by the wali. So really quick, does anyone know the difference between al-wali and al-wakil?
A wali should be a family member. Wakil is other than a family member?
No. Obviously, a wali, what is the difference between a wali and a wakil? Say again? A woman has a wali and a wali may have a wakil. Does that make sense? Or did I confuse anyone? Oh, everyone got that? Sheikh, you look confused. I'll just say I'm confused. I don't understand, brother. All right, listen. An-Nabi alayhi salatu salam, he said, La nikah illa bi wali wa shahidain adilain. An-Nabi alayhi salatu salam, he said, there's no marriage unless there is a wali, two witnesses that are just, right? It says nothing about a wakil. So then the problem is, well, what is a wakil? And what does a wakil have to do with someone getting married? And who even introduced that terminology, wakil, into our community and assuming that this is what is needed in order to get married? There's no place for it. A wakil is a person who represents any type of transaction that you're doing. A wakil is a representative of any type of transaction that you're doing, be it fiscally, financially, if any type of transaction. Anyone who represents you in doing a transaction is a wakil. So a sister may be listening to this, say, all right, well, that's who's representing me is a wakil. To answer to that is that a sister cannot represent herself for marriage. A sister or a woman cannot represent herself in marriage. Rather, she needs a wali, and a wali can have a wakil, because the wakil would be representing who? The sister or the wali? The wali. Mumtaz. Does everyone understand that? Again, the wali represents the sister, and the wakil represents the wali. So then, a sister cannot get married if she does not have a wali. So when you go to the masjid and you're looking for a representation, you need to have a wali, not a wakil. A wakil, I'm not sure how or when that terminology was introduced into our community, but it's been used inappropriately. If I ask someone, if a sister asks a brother, so a brother, well, can a sister have a wakil? Absolutely. But not a wakil for marriage, a wakil for any other transaction. For example, a sister may say, brother, can you go to the store? Can you buy me XYZ? So the brother goes and spends on behalf of that sister. He is her wakil. But if she wants to get married, then she can't have a wakil. She needs a wali. She needs a wali, not a wakil. Is that clear? Right. As we continue with the lesson today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to talk about the conditions of a wali. Who can be a wali? Can anybody be a wali? Right. We're going to cover that, inshallah ta'ala. So back to the pillars of marriage. So it has to be a husband, a man, and a woman. Islam does not accept same-sex marriage. This is not from Islam. Okay? Islam, it must be a man and a woman. Khaliyan min al-mawani', that they do not have anything that would prevent them from being married. Al-ijab wal-qubul. Al-ijab is when the wali says to the brother, I marry you to this sister, her name. This comes from the wali. So he says, zawajtuka or ankahtuka, etc. And the husband or the man, he says, qabiltu, meaning I accept. So here, we're going to read what some of the scholars of the past say about this particular method of marriage. They say, لا يصح من يحسن العربية بغير لفظ. It is not permissible, meaning the marriage will not be correct if the person knows Arabic and doesn't use it when it comes to getting married. So, for example, if the wali must say to the man, zawajtu, meaning I marry you, because a woman cannot marry herself off, the wali marries her off. So he says, zawajtuka or ankahtu, right? Both of them in English, they means I married you, or I marry you to this person, or ankahtu and tazawwajtu, they mean the same thing, right? The next one, it says qabiltu hadha nikah. The man that is getting married, he must say in Arabic qabiltu, meaning I accept this marriage. Or tazawwajtuha, or tazawwajtu, or qabiltu. And then they say, وَمَنْ جَهِلَهُمَا لَمْ يَلْزَمْهُ تَعَلُّمُهُمَا. Whoever does not know them. Let's say, for example, my tongue, I'm not real good at Arabic, I'm going to mess it up. Is it a requirement for me to learn this prior to getting married? The answer is no. It's not a requirement. If he can say the meaning of it in his language, then this will suffice. But if you have the ability to say it in the Arabic language, then this is preferable, rather this is better. Now they're going to get into the technicalities of contracts when it comes to marriage. Now, this technicality here, this goes with business transactions as well. This goes with business transactions as well. So it says, فَإِن تَقَدَّمَ الْقَبُولُ لَمْ يَصِحْ. Let's say, for example, the man and the woman, they want to get married. The wali is there and the husband is there. And the husband says, right from the beginning, I accept. Without him saying, I married you to this sister, then this is not correct. A person cannot say, I accept this marriage before the marriage is even offered to him. Before the marriage is even offered to him. And it says, وَإِن تَأَخَّرَ عَنَ الْإِجَابِ صَحَّ مَا دَامَ فِي الْمَجْلِسِ وَلَمْ يَتَشَغَلَ بِمَا يَقْطَعُهُ. All right, this next part is tricky. And what this means is whoever delays. So for example, if the wali says, I marry you to sister Fulana, and the brother doesn't say anything, they're just sitting there quiet, and some time going by. So everybody look like, what you gonna do? And he doesn't say anything, right? It says, in ta'akhara an al-ijab sahha. Even if he delays it 5 minutes and don't say nothing. And then he says, qabilt. Is the marriage still correct? The answer is yes, as long as what? As long as he doesn't get up and walk away, and as long as they both don't become busy with something else. Busy with something else like what? Let's say they're sitting there, and the wali says, I marry you to sister Fulana. And while he's sitting there, his phone rings. Hold on a second. He pick up his phone, then he pick up his phone. They start having a different type of conversation. At that point, it's over. They got to do the whole thing over again. Why? Because they both became busy with something else. They became busy with something else. Right. Another thing, if they separate prior to the husband saying he accepts, likewise, the marriage will not be valid. They will have to do it. They will have to do it again. So now we're going to talk about, inshallah ta'ala, the conditions. Because now we mentioned that the marriage has pillars. What are the pillars of marriage? What are they? We mentioned 3. What are they? So when I said the word ijab, that means offering. When I say qabul, means acceptance. So there has to be a husband and a wife, a man and a woman. That counts as one. The second one is an offering, and the third one is acceptance. So it has to be a man and a woman. It has to be an offering, and it has to be a what? Acceptance. Those are 3 things. Yes.
Is the woman having the wali included in that?
We didn't get there yet. No, I just mentioned wali as a subsidiary issue, but we're gonna directly talk about that right now in the conditions. Yes. Go ahead, brother.
I recently got married, and the wali, he wasn't really trying to marry the girl off. He basically saying like, I would do it on my time, and I'll do it when I want to, and X, Y, and Z. Basically, go along and let's get married. And
Did you get married?
yes, I did get married.
With a different wali?
So how we did it was we went over and went to our brother because they had the same mother and same father. So we did it through an uncle and the brother.
Her father was Muslim?
Yeah. But what they were saying was that he wasn't.
Listen, Sheikh, listen. We gotta talk offline because that your issue is a lot of. I don't want to confuse people, but by the time we finish the class today, you're gonna definitely want to talk to me.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do it today, but probably tomorrow.
You're not gonna be able to do what? Talk to me? Oh, that's fine. We'll talk. When you see me, we got to talk about it because your situation has some issues with it. All right, and we try to fix it, inshallah. Right. So a marriage, it says walahu shurut. So the marriage, it has conditions, right? There are 4 conditions. We're going to cover those 4 conditions tonight, and then we'll pick up tomorrow with the next part. There are 4 conditions. Walahu shurut. Ahaduhuma ta'yinu zawjayn. The first of them is specifying who it is you want to marry. I know it sounds simple, but it's also from the condition. So, for example, a wali may say, I marry you to my daughter, right? So if the wali says, I marry you to my daughter, you coming back tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow.
What time?
Probably when I get off work, because I work across the street from DTLR.
Okay.
So I could probably stop in at any time when I get a break.
All right.
If you're here,
You praying Jumu'ah here tomorrow?
inshallah, I should be.
All right, inshallah. We'll talk. All right. So anyway, salam to فإن أشار الولي إلى زوجة سماها. For example, if a wali says, I'm gonna marry you to my daughter, he got 5 daughters. He doesn't specify, right? I know it sounds like who's going to do that, but they mentioned these are from the conditions. You have to be very specific about who you're going to marry. Fulana bint Fulan bint Fulan. Be very clear about who you're going to marry. That's the first condition. The second condition, ridahuma, that they both have to be okay with the marriage. I know it sounds like, what is that? That's common sense, right? They both have to be okay with the marriage. Right. The next part is what probably most of the class today will be about. The third part is the wali. Now, I hope the brother would have stayed, but this is important. This part about the wali is very, very, very important. In order to be a wali, there are conditions. There are conditions. In order to be a wali, there are conditions. There are 6 conditions. If anyone's writing it down, write this down. There are 6 conditions to being a wali. So some of you brothers may, obviously you may have daughters, you may have nieces, you may have etc. You want to know, are you even qualified to be a wali? So various conditions to being a wali. How many times we hear sisters, they want to get married. Oh, my son, he's 18. My son's 18. My son's 17. Is he qualified to be my wali? Well, there are conditions. So we're going to talk about these conditions. Does he meet them? Yes or no? In some cases, these young men be walking their mothers into a trap. Why? Because their mom might force them to marry them to this guy, and the young man don't really think that's a good idea. But if he doesn't agree, then he's going to have a problem with his mother. That's not a good fit. That person is not suitable to represent you, because a wali has to be an independent thinker. He has to be able to make a judgment. This is either a good thing or is a bad thing. And when you got your mother in your ear telling you, boy, you better, you know what I'm saying? Now you feel like you twisting his arm. So he can't really represent his mother the way that he's supposed to, because his hands are tied. So, and all of that goes into these conditions. So the first condition is a taklif. A taklif, that means they're baligh aqil. That means that the boy, he's of age of Islamic puberty, and he has the intellect to go with it. It's the first thing. So a mother in the back said, all right, my son checks the box there. The next thing is dhukuriya, that he has to be a male. The wali has to be a man. So a person may say, all right, checks the box there. The next one, hurriya. Obviously, he's free, checks the box there. The next one, this is the part where there are problems. It's called a rushd fil aqd. Rushd fil aqd, what does this mean? So if a person is going to translate that, a rushd fil aqd, this means that a person makes sound judgment when it comes to entering the contracts. And sound judgment when it comes to entering into contracts may vary. So for example, when it comes to get married, this person he's guided when it comes to that. When it comes to getting money, this person's guided when it comes to this, but not in that lane. When it comes to training, he's guided in that lane, but not in that lane. Does that make sense? So a person could be good in one thing, but not good in other things. It doesn't mean they're knowledgeable in every aspect. Is that fair? All right. When it comes to a rushd fil aqd, this means guidance in contracts. This specifically means that the person knows what to look for when it comes to getting married. And as some of the ulama mentioned, he knows the masalih an-nikah, meaning he knows what's going to be beneficial and advantageous for that woman he's representing. An 18-year-old won't know that. Some may, most won't. Some may, most won't. Right? He also must know what is beneficial for the woman that he's representing in terms of the man that's approaching for marriage. He must be able to look at him and say, this person is not suitable because of this, and this, right? A lot of young men don't know that. It's hard. Think about it. You got an 18-year-old boy talking to a 45-year-old man. If the 45-year-old man's crafty, he's going to run laps around him. 35 is going to run laps around. Why? Because he has life experience that the young man just didn't get yet. But the mother, she just wants to get married. So, boy, you better sit in, do the, and now what happens is she forces her son to marry her off, and he's mad the whole time. And then 6 months later, she's in the office talking to Naeem. The marriage ain't work out. And the boy, he's mad. The son's mad because his mother forced him to do something that he knew wouldn't work. And so this is my advice, sisters. Do not put your son in that situation. And we'll talk about who's qualified to be the wali. Even if the son, technically he may not be qualified because of that issue right there. The next one, which is number 5, ittifaqud din. Obviously, the one that is being represented, meaning the wali and the sister, must have the same religion, right? A sister cannot have a Christian represent a Muslim when it comes to getting married, except under certain circumstances. Oh, never heard this before. What circumstance would that be? Say, for example, you live in a country, and there's a narration of the Prophet ﷺ. It says a sultan is the wali liman la waliya lah, that the ruler is the wali for the one that does not have a wali. In this case, if the ruler is a non-Muslim, then in these cases, the non-Muslim represents the Muslim to get married. Those are extreme circumstances. Those aren't circumstances that we live in, but I just thought I would just throw that in there just to, exercise your mind a little bit. Yes.
I don't want to get wrong. The answer is wrong about it, but when it comes to the wali being Muslim, where's the prayer in the question?
So he said if the wali is Muslim, so then listen. So the last part is al-adala, that they must be just. So what is being just? Just means that walau zahira, even if they outwardly look like they're doing what they're supposed to be, li'annaha la wilayata nadariyya. So also the person should not be sinful, outwardly sinful, right? So we don't know. So the reality here is, when you said about the person's salat, like, I don't know as men I'm not going to follow you around 5 times a day to make sure you're praying, right? But if it's known like the person doesn't pray, in that case, many of the scholars don't even consider them to be Muslim to begin with. So that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah. So that's a whole nother conversation. However, we'll move on with that one. The next part. So we mentioned 6 conditions of a wali. Does everyone know what they are? You know what they are, Sheikh? No, you don't got to read them off. I was just making sure you know. All right. The next part. فَلَا تَزَوِّجُ إِمْرَأَةٌ نَفْسَهَا وَلَا غَيْرَهَا. This is important. They also mention a woman does not marry herself off. For some reason, I think in the times we're living in now, women think that they can marry themselves off. They don't need men to represent them, which makes sense because that goes along with the feminist movement. There's no need for men anyway, all right? But Islam, no, that doesn't work. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he said that there's no marriage unless there's a wali. A wali are men, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Ar-rijal qawwamuna ala nisa, that men are protectors and maintainers of women, not the other way around. Not the other way around. Huh? And a lot of times, when the sisters come here, the women, they fall in love with what they hear. A man could be the biggest fraud. You get in a woman's face, he's everything to her. And this is sisters. This is pay attention. Because now you're talking about children. And sisters that get married, they get a divorce, and they have children, multiple children by men. And now, she's giving the father problems with seeing his kids, etc. This is a question that we tell the sisters to ask themselves. The man that you have multiple kids with, 3 kids with, 4 kids with, 5 kids with, etc., and you're not married anymore, you have to ask yourself, do other men respect your ex-husband? And if the answer is yes, then let your kids be around him so that he can teach his kids how to be respected by other men. Did that make sense? Huh? The system, they father, he's this. All right, but do men respect him? If men respect him, he got a son, then you want to put him in position so your son can be respected too. Because you can't do that. Sorry, sisters, you don't have the ability to give your son skills to be respected by other men. You don't. That comes from a man. Comes from a man. Right. So then, a woman cannot marry herself off, and she cannot marry off other women. A woman cannot marry herself off, and she cannot marry off other women. So now we're going to get into the next part. The next part here is very detailed. There are 14 people that can be the wali. 14. And we're going to add a 15th one because of where we live. And when we get to the 15th one, you're going to say where you get that from. We'll talk about that, inshallah ta'ala. So there are 14 people. And we're going to mention them in terms of order of importance, meaning order. So one can't jump the other if there's an order. And we're also going to mention in this who can't be and why they can't be. So the first one, وَيُقَدَّمُ أَبُو الْمَرْأَةِ فِي إِنْكَاحِهَا. So the very first person that can be a wali for a sister is her father. Her father. The father, his responsibility supersedes everyone else. So if a sister wants to get married and she goes around her father, then she's setting herself up for failure. Why? Because her father, there's no man, and this is important. Sisters, you need to understand this. There's no man alive that loves you more than your father. Oh, my husband, all right, when you get divorced, he ain't gonna love you no more. And the only man that could love you as much as your father is your son. But your father is the one there's no man that's gonna love you more than your dad. That's just the reality. So if your father says this man's not good, he's not just looking out for you, he's looking out for himself. Well, how is he looking out for himself? Because some men, the brothers understand that statement. If your father says this man's a no-go, he's looking out for you, but he's looking out for himself too. Because he knows, don't put him in position where he can't see the rest of his family for a long time. Sisters don't understand that. Sisters don't understand that. So if a father is telling you this man's not good, he's not saying it because he don't like the way he look. He don't care about how he look. He's worrying about how he's going to be treating you. And so this is what happens. A daughter may oppose her father and for whatever reason find some loophole from somebody that green lights them to get married. Then the daughter gets married. She puts herself in a bad situation. Now she won't tell her dad because she's too embarrassed. So she goes through torture and hardship. And come in and he said, how many women suffer from the same thing in our community? It's women that don't have fathers. What if the ones that have fathers but don't listen to them? And there's some women wish they had fathers that would have schooled them on how to move. Where there are some women that have fathers that school them on how to move, but they don't want to listen. It's crazy. This world is crazy. Right? So the first person is the father. The father is the wali. Then who's the next person after the father? Who do you think? You say grandfather. Who else?
Paternal grandfather.
Paternal? Paternal.
Oh,
What do you think? The brother. What do you think? Huh? The uncle. So let me tell you how much power the father has in Islam. The next person after the father is whoever he puts in place after he's gone. It's the father, and let's say the father passed away, but leaving the will, something happened to me, I want such and such to look after the affairs of my daughter when it comes to get married. That takes precedence over everybody else.
Does that make that person the wakil?
So yes. Well, essentially he will become the wali because the wali would be deceased. Meaning the father will be deceased. So the father, while he's living, he would have been a wakil, but once he's deceased, now he becomes the wali. That's deep, right? That shows the importance of the father. Whatever the father chooses will supersede everybody else. All right. After the wasiyah or after the will, who's next? Thumma jadduha. Her grandfather, li'ab. Her grandfather on her father's side. Why is that? Because in Islam, lineage goes through the father, doesn't go through the mother. When it comes to Islamic inheritance, not that you don't inherit from your mother, but when it comes to the wilaya and guardianship, it goes by way of the father, the lineage of the dad. Make sense? So Islam stresses the importance. And his sisters, your kids got fathers, they need to know their fathers. Especially these young black men, they need to know their dads. They need to, if their dad messed up, he need to get himself together so he could be a good representative or good role model for their sons. That's just the reality. The kids need it. So it says, Thumma jadduha wa in ala. So it's the grandfather on the father's side and what goes up. So it'll be the grandfather, the great-grandfather, the great-great-grandfather on the father's side on up. Not the mother's side. So that is 1, 2, 3. That's the third one. Play. Thumma ibnuha. And then after that is her son. Her son is number 4. So her son will represent, obviously, if he fulfills all 6 of these conditions. And this is everybody, right? Thumma banuhu. And then her grandchildren. Right? So it'll be her son or her grandson or her grandson by way of her son, not by way of her daughter. Her grandson by way of her son, not by way of her daughter. Is that clear? After that, that is what? Number 5? All right. Number 6. Thumma akhuha li abawaini. Then her brother from the same mother and father. Her brother from the same mother and father takes precedence over a brother from the same father, but different mothers. Takes precedence over a brother from the mother. Huh? I know. I'm going to say it again. The brother in Islam is called the la'akh shaqiq. A shaqiq are siblings that share the same mother and father. They're called ashiqa, meaning they are linked by the same mom and dad. They are the closest in terms of lineage and the closest in terms when it comes to wilayah. So if you're a sister that has a brother from the same mother and father, he becomes her wali after everyone that we just mentioned. And he is number 6 on the list. Number 6 on the list. Right. Number 7 on the list, akhun li'ab, a father, but they have the same, the brother, but they share the same father, but different mother. So you have the brother with the same mom and dad, or closest in lineage. Then it's the brother with the same father, but different mothers. That's it. Question: what about the brother with the same mother? He can't be your wali. We're going to come back. Hold that thought, though. Remember, I just said that because we want to wrap that up at the end. Okay? Does that make sense? No, he's not the squad. He's just not. He's not considered a wali. Whoever's listening to this class, don't stop right here and be like, oh, he said that. That's it. No. Whoever runs and says the brother said this and didn't listen to the end of it, everybody know. I said wait to the end because it's going to come back around. All right? So the brother from the mother is not a wali. It's not original wali of a sister. Okay? Is that clear? Thank you. So then, that is number 7. Thumma banuhuma. And number 8 is their children, meaning her nephews from the same mother and father. Her brother from the same mother and father, his sons. Her nephews would be her wali. Or her nephew from the same father, having a son, he would also be the wali. Is that clear? Did I lose anybody? Did I lose you, Sheikh? You good? All right. Good. Now, that was number 8. We're going to go to number 9. Now, number 9 is her uncles on her father's side with the same mom and dad. The uncle, this is number 9. The uncle on her father's side with the same mom and dad. What does that mean? So, the sister has her father has a brother. Her brother, meaning her father and her uncle, they have the same mom and dad, the same grandparents. That's the next one on the list. The same grandmother and grandfather. Does that make sense? All right. That's number 9. Number 10 is the uncle on her father's side, but they only share the same dad, not the same mom. That comes next. That is number 10. Number 11 is their children. Who would they be? Her cousins. Her cousins. Right? Like,
Their children.
huh?
When you say their children.
Yeah, their children. So our uncle, your uncle's son is what? Who is that to you? Your cousins. So now paternal cousins, right? So then those cousins can be her wali. So right now, huh? Not on the mom's side. Nothing on the mom's side can be a wali. Nothing on the mom's side can be a wali. Nothing on the mom's side can be a wali. And don't stop with that because we're going to finish. That's going to come back at the end. All right. You got to understand right now what's going on. This is the Sharia. This is how it's set up, right? This is Islamic law. Now, are there exceptions? Yes, we're going to hit that at the end. But right now, you got to understand the origin. The origin is there's nobody on the mother's side, all on the father's side. And this shows the importance of men. Men are very important to move Islam forward. We need men. There's no world without men here, right? Like the next one. And number 12, ثُمَّ أَقْرَبُ عَصَبَتِهِ بِنَسَبٍ كَإِرْثٍ. Then after the cousins, whoever comes next in inheritance. Whoever comes next in inheritance, that is number 12. Actually, I said it was 15, there's only 14. Number 13 is the sultan, the ruler. If there's no one else, then the ruler of that particular town, where the narration says, a sultan waliyu man la waliya lah. Whoever does not have a wali, then the sultan or the ruler will become the wali. So those are 13 walis. The very last one, after the sultan, this will be number 14. So, and we're going to take the statement of Imam Ahmed, rahimahullah ta'ala, where he mentioned, what happens if a woman was in a place where there's no sultan, she's a new shahada, etc.? Who's going to be her wali? She has no brothers, no father, no Islamic people, no Muslims around her to help represent her. Who's going to be her wali? So in this case, they say that a woman can choose who she wants to be her wali to represent her. And some of the ulama even mention that they should go to the Marakis al-Islamiyya, meaning the masajid, like in our area, to look for a wali. Now, question, if you're going to go, now mind you, she can choose her own wali, right? So the question now is, in a case like this, who would be the best wali for her to choose? Her brother from her mother? The men that are Muslim on her mother's side over the masjid? Absolutely. Did that make sense? Like, why is that? Why is it preferable for her to choose the men in her family that are not on her father's side over the masjid? Why? Mumtaz, because they know her. Because they know her. And I would even, and we at IMFC, we would even suggest that when the sisters get married, even if your father's not a Muslim, involve him in the process with your wali. Why is that? Because if he's a father, he cares about his daughter. He's going to want to know what's going on with his daughter, right? So it's only right. I'm not saying you have to. I'm saying it's better. Because I'm going to tell y'all something. Anytime a man is dealing with a woman and there's no men around, it's free game for him. Am I right? Everybody get quiet. If I'm lying, I'm dying. That's what the old head used to tell me. Huh? Right. If it's a woman and there's no men around, a man looks as that a wolf about to take the sheep. And if it's a woman and if it's men around her, then he's forced to respect the process. And to be honest, a man gonna respect the woman like that more anyway. Why is that? Because he got to work for it. He can't just step in and do what he wants. He got to go through, he got to jump hoops and backflips and everything else. And that's how a man would know if he's serious or not. But if there's no men around, a man can move how he wants. And he'd start talking in her ear and his curtains. He do whatever he wants. So then the next issue, when it comes to this, so it says, فَإِنْ عَدَلَ الْأَقْرَبِ. Let's say, for example, her brother, her grandfather. Let's say her grandfather, for example, he's like, nah, I'm not trying to marry her. Like in the case that brother mentioned. I'm not trying to marry her off. The father's not around, the grandfather's around. I don't want to marry her off. Her brother is like, Yeah, I'm saying, grandpa, boy, all right, he's a good dude. Can the brother usurp or remove the grandfather from that position? Right? It says, فإن عدل الأقرب أو لم يكن أهلا أو غاب غيبة منقطعة لا تقطع إلا بكفلة ومشقة زوج الأبعد. So this means they give conditions here. If they just don't want to marry for whatever reason, nothing legislative, just to be oppressive, right? Or the grandfather's really not suitable to marry her off. He got stuff going on with him. Maybe he doesn't fulfill those conditions that we mentioned, right? Or the grandfather is far enough away, travel-wise, that his phone, he don't have no way of communicating with him or nothing, right? In this case, it's permissible for the ab'ad, the one that's further away in lineage, to marry them off in front of the grandfather. So, for example, in this case, it would be permissible for the brother to overtake the position of the uncle, of the grandfather, because because of those conditions that we mentioned, the brother says no, he's going to do it. In this case, the marriage will be okay. There wouldn't be any issues with it. However, if the brother decides to marry his sister off without the father's permission, in that case, the marriage will not be accepted. The marriage will not be accepted. Did that make sense? So if a brother is like, man, I'm going to marry my sister off anyway, without even going through the father's Muslim, and the marriage will not be accepted. The marriage will not be accepted. Right. So then, those were the three conditions of marriage. Then we're going to get to the fourth one. The fourth one is a shahada, meaning witnesses. فلا يصح إلا بشاهدين عدلين ذكرين مكلفين سميعين ناطقين. Then there are 6 conditions to be a witness of a marriage. The first one, it has to be 2 men. The second one, they have to be just. Third one, they have to be men, we just mentioned. The fourth one, mukallifain, they have to be baligh, aqil, meaning they have to be reach the age of Islamic puberty, and they have to have their intellect has to be in place. Sami'aini, they must be able to hear, wa natiqaini, and they must be able to speak. If they're able to do those things, then they are suitable to be witnesses in a marriage. Now, before we started, we said there are only 4, right? There's a 5th condition that some of the scholars of Islam differ about. There's a 5th condition that some of the scholars of Islam differ about, and it's called al-kafa'a. Al-kafa'a, it means that they must agree in deen and then family lineage. Now, some ulama say this is not a condition, but some say that it is. The ones that say that it is, they want to look at the religion of the individual. So it says, فَلَوْ زَوَّجَ الْأَبْ عَفِيفَةً بِفَاجِرٍ. So if a father marries his daughter off to a sinful person, this is not considered to be kafa'a, meaning they're not equal, right? And people might say equally yoked, right? If they're not equal, the father marries his daughter who's clean, nice, not into nothing. She marries his daughter off to a sinful guy in the streets moving crazy. If her brother finds out about, now this is if this is a condition. If her brother, uncle, grandfather, any of them found out about it, they have a right to go and nullify that marriage. And nullify the marriage. Yeah. So for example, if this is a condition that we're entering in, then let's say the father married off to somebody that's, he's in the streets. He's not moving right, right? The brother knows this guy. No, the dad don't know, but the brother know. He says, no, I'm nullifying this marriage. This marriage is over. You're not going to be married to my sister. That's it. Islamically, this would be okay. Why is that? What would make that okay? Why is that okay? No. Not about the information. Why would that be okay? For the brother to nullify their marriage. Because to protect the sister. It's to protect his sister. Right? Now, I'm not saying, now some scholars differ on whether that's even a condition. The other one is lineage. There's we're not going to get into that part. But as it relates to our community, what would be relevant from that as it relates to us is this issue. Who are you marrying your sister or daughter off to? In that regard, some people may take this position and they may come, and so they say they will go back to the mahkama. The mahkama would be the Islamic court. They will go back to the Islamic court. Or in our society, it will come to the Markaz Islami, the Islamic centers, where the masajid and say, listen, my sister's married to this person. I don't want her being married to him for this reason. I need you to cancel their marriage, end it. And so some places in Saudi in particular, they will end that marriage, right? Because
Would it have to be proven, excuse me, that this person is moving crazy? Would it have to be proven?
for sure, have to be proven. Yeah. I mean, that's just fair, right? We're assuming that it's proven. We're assuming that it's known. We're assuming all those things, right? And so with that, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to stop. If anyone have any questions, we'll answer some questions. If not, tomorrow we'll move into the muharramat of nikah. Yes.
You said 2 men, they have to be just, and then you just say 1 man?
No, 2 men.
2 men, that was the first one.
So, okay, I'm sorry. It has to be 2 witnesses, right?
Oh, 2 witnesses.
That are just, that are men, they reach the age of Islamic puberty, that they both can hear and that they both can speak. Yes.
Those are the conditions for the shahada. It's 4 or 6.
It was 6.
So that's the first one.
2 witnesses. Number 1, 2 witnesses. They must be just 2 men. They both must reach the Islamic puberty. They both must be able to hear and they both must be able to speak. That's 6. Any other questions? Yes.
Judges, like say if they say the dad is like, you don't meet these, if you don't meet the requirements,
Mumtaz. So he said that if the father doesn't meet the requirements for a wali, who will make that determination? Usually those determinations will be made by judges. Or if there's an Islamic center that you respect the people with Islamic knowledge, then you can take them there and let them be the judge. That's the purpose. Listen, that's the purpose of Islamic centers in the West. The Islamic centers in the West should be set up, as the ulama mentioned, when brothers or sisters, they go study Islam and they come back to their countries. What are you supposed to do? The job is that you set up these institutions so that people will come to you and you give verdicts, etc., to help the people in your community. That's the purpose of it. I'm not saying, and I think in a lot of ways we fall short. May Allah pardon all of us. But in a lot of ways we fall short as a community for not having these things in place to support our community. But essentially, that's the purpose. When you have students, they go overseas, they study Sharia, they study Qala, they study all these jurisprudence issues. It's for a purpose. The purpose is to set up these things in place to help navigate the affairs of the community so that we can have some type of religious continuity where everyone's able to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with clarity and understand what's halal, what's not halal, what we're supposed to do, what we're not supposed to do, etc. So those are the issues. Those are the reasons. So the asaf, we don't have that. Yes.
What would be a reason for wali to appoint a wakil?
What would be the good question? What would be the reason why a wali would appoint a wakil? A wali would appoint a wakil because maybe he doesn't want to represent her. So he says, look, you stand on my behalf. Maybe he's mad. Maybe his daughter's marrying somebody he doesn't want her to marry, but she's bent on doing it. So he might say, listen, you step in my place to do it. Or maybe he's traveling right? Maybe he's out of town. Maybe said, listen, I need you to handle this marriage for it while I'm not here, right? Barakallahu feek, yes.
Kind of same, similar to what you said. In the beginning, he was going over the list in order from the father to the person he appointed if he died, so forth and so on.
Right.
If any of those people at the lower half of the list are, we know, and over here in America, people be like, I want to marry sister so-and-so want to marry me. I'm the father. My daughter want to marry some knucklehead. I'm like, no, Islamic reasons, this is why you can't marry him. My son decide to marry him anyway. Is that a valid marriage? Like those people that come to me,
it would depend. When the father said no, did he say no but gave the son the ability to marry off, or he said no, I'm not marrying off, and the brother did it on his own? Then according to what we just covered, it wouldn't be. But I'm going to say this to you: don't take what I said as a general statement and make it specific to somebody you know. Okay? Don't do that. The problem is we do that a lot in this town. We take general answers and we make it specific to somebody without that person speaking and I'm clarifying that issue. All right? That's something that, you know, when we don't take the time to study Islam, you got to be very careful about stuff like that. You can mess somebody's life up over a general statement. They made it specific to that person. Right? Like, any other questions? Yes. Sisters, you have any questions? All right, we're going to stop with that, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.